This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hello, everybody. Championship Sunday in the books as we welcome you into this Monday edition of Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. Hope wherever you're watching or listening from, you're safe and warm and dry as the weather across the country continues to be a problem, to say the least. Alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. Still stranded here in Lubbock, Texas from the Texas Tech Houston basketball game I did sideline for on Saturday. JVT, my initial flight's connection yesterday was supposed to go through Denver. And for everybody that watched the Broncos-Patriots game in the second half, you know why I didn't make it. So hopefully we have better luck this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a surprise, was it not? I mean, as somebody who was affected by that,
yeah.
I didn't see in the forecast at all that there was supposed to be like a mini blizzard in the third quarter. So that took you, the country, Sean Payton, and Mike Vrabel by surprise, I think, yesterday. So hopefully you get back soon. But, you know, judging by the sound of your sinuses, I'm kind of glad that we're separated for one more day at least.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I am. Maybe I'm just allergic to the cold, that the cold literally made me sick because it is not a good time out here thus far. And we're going to push through today, keep fighting the good fight, and lots to get into, obviously, now with the results from last night. So let's set the table for everything that we have to come over the course of the next 2 hours. Producer Justin, time to hit us with the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
So, JVT, in addition to everything we're going to talk football-wise, worth noting as well, pretty fun weekend in college basketball. We've got a pair of ranked-on-ranked nationally televised games tonight, including top-ranked Arizona, only a slight favorite in BYU, taking on the 13th-ranked Cougars.
Yeah, really looking forward to this, and for a big reason. We were just watched in the Holy War, at least part 2 of the Holy War, that A.J. Bonsa just went insane for 43 points, and now we get to see him again tonight against Arizona. Big test for 2 teams that I truly believe are national title contenders. That going down a limb, right? We got a combined, 3 losses between the 2 of them? No, excuse me, 2 losses between the 2 of them, so I can't wait to watch what's going to transpire. I am a believer in Arizona. Tim Murray chided me. He is not. We will see if the Wildcats have something in store for BYU today.
Okay, and we also have number 23 Louisville at number 5 Duke, some other interesting games as well. And we'll push it forward to the NBA, where the dogs have been barking 4-2 outright on the Sunday card, which included a couple double-digit dogs, beating the top 2 teams in the West, Oklahoma City. How about Upset City? Thunder go down as an 11.5-point favorite to the Raptors yesterday. Pels beat the Spurs. Will that continue into tonight? We've got 7 games on the NBA card, including JVT, 1 already in action with Pacers and Hawks. Atlanta closed around a 5.5-point favorite. They're trailing right now to the Pacers, who are up 35-32 in Atlanta right now.
Yep, watching right now. We should have, we're going to have Call Me Crazy later. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but the NBA should have more day games. So, you're an 82-game season. Yeah. It's a long time. Throw some more day games in there so we can watch the basketball. But as you're saying, it's 60 seconds left in the first with the Hawks trailing by 3. We'll keep an eye on that as we go along.
And we, of course, selfishly would enjoy that just because we're on the air during this window. Give us more day games. Right. Give us some games to sweat. That said, let's not bury the lead any further. Super Bowl 60 is set. We're going to talk about this a number of times throughout the course of the show. We know the Seahawks are currently laying 4.5 against the Patriots in Santa Clara. That game coming up on February 8th. Total 46. Both the Patriots and Seahawks, JVT, were 60-1 in the preseason. When you look at those Super Bowl odds on DraftKings, some other books even longer. There has never been a Super Bowl between 2 different teams to enter the season with odds that long. We'll give our thoughts on that game. We'll also head behind the counter with Jeff Sherman at the Westgate as well. But first, let's talk a little bit about how we got here. And anything in particular that surprised you from the results last night as the Patriots beat the Broncos 10-7 and Seattle beats the Rams 31-27.
I mean, this is just a general thought. I told our buddy Will Hill this yesterday, but watching both of these games and you see a 10-7 game that was altered by the weather that you had already discussed, but I saw 2 completely different games. It was actually incredible to see that those were the same sports. And I saw 2 teams that were at a much higher level than what the 2 AFC teams brought. And I think it ultimately boils down to the point that a lot of us were making for a very long time, Stormy. I think the NFC is ahead of the AFC here. And very obviously, both teams are going to be favored no matter who came out of the AFC. But I think that there's a pretty sizable gap. And that's represented somewhat in the point spread, which is up to 4.5 for the Super Bowl. But just in general, I saw two teams that weren't overly impressive, and neither have been overtly impressive in their their playoff runs. And I think that would be the same for the New England Patriots. I think that's my general takeaway. I've said it a couple of times now. I think the Seahawks team is kind of rolling. We'll have more about how I feel about them in the big picture, but that was my big takeaway: is that the perceived edge between the NFC and the AFC was on full display yesterday.
Yeah, in complete agreement with you. I didn't get to watch as much of that Patriots-Broncos game live as I wanted to because of some of my travel issues. But as I went back through late last night, doesn't look like I missed much. It was a terrible watch, bad game. The combined 17 points were the fewest combined points in a conference championship game since 2003. The combined 387 yards, the fewest combined yards since 1985. And I know we'll dive deep into both of these games, but Sean Payton has to be kicking himself. And I usually err on the side of going for it, but I was pretty stunned that Sean Payton didn't kick the field goal when it was 7-0. They had that 4th and 1 on the 14-yard line. Your defense is playing well. You got a backup quarterback in there. Here is Sean Payton after the game on that decision.
We ended up in a 6-1 front. They ended up playing in a heavy 6-1. There was a clock stoppage, so we had a nickel run called, and then I don't know if there was a timeout or they called one, but it's a slipper naked that we've run pretty well. They played a 6-1 front with a kind of a 2-deep shell, so the run look was going to be, hindsight, the initial sub run thought was a better decision.
And JVT, the Broncos didn't run another play inside the Patriots 30 the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of hindsight to disagree with Payton to go for it here, because I think when you look at what was transpiring at the game at that time, before we knew what was going to happen weather-wise, Stormy, they were moving the football. They go 3 and out on their first drive, but then their second drive is that 5-play, 59-yard drive where they get a big play, score a touchdown. After that, they go 7 plays, 22 yards, are forced to punt it there. And then this drive where they go 43 yards, they're in the red zone, and then they go for it on 4th down. I didn't mind going for it, and the numbers would tell you that you go for it in that situation. To me, as it always comes down to with these situations, I just disagreed with the play call. I don't like, and I can't stand the plays in which you cut the field in half and take away an aspect of that field that you can use to potentially get a first down. Those are always what drive me nuts. I think that a lot of people that are trying to kill him for this in a game that eventually ended 10-7, I think we have to realize that, 1, they were moving the ball. 2, a weird non-fumble from Jarrett Stidham that ultimately makes the difference in the game for them as well transpired afterwards. There was a whole lot of other things that led to this team losing, but because they lose 10-7, a lot of people want to point to the fact that you could have had 3 points. Could they have? Because we also watched these guys miss a ton of kicks in this game, and that's another aspect of it. It is not guaranteed that you're going to get 3 points, even if you decide to kick it from that short.
Sure, but I do think a lot of the kicking issues also transpired in the second half when the weather changed as well. So there's a lot that goes into it. But that play you mentioned with Stidham, that 3rd and 4 where he backpedals like Lord knows how many yards trying to escape pressure. He flips the ball out. It could have been a scoop and score regardless. The Patriots cash in on the short field. And then the Broncos just in the second half when the weather changed had no offense at all. They go scoreless their last 10 drives. I mentioned after that 4th down attempt, they didn't get it inside the Patriots 30 the rest of the game. It was a really tough performance. And on the Patriots side of it too, it wasn't great. And I know this is for Pats fans electric because you are the downtime wasn't lived for very long for New England Patriots fans, right? Yes, they have back-to-back 4-win years. It's ugly. And now all of a sudden you have Drake May and Mike Vrabel and you're back in the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of excitement there. But when all is said and done, and I know we're going to preview our early thoughts on the Super Bowl in a bit, I feel like Seattle is going to roll and is significantly the better team, as you kind of alluded to also. I do want to give you some credit in that Rams-Seahawks game, though, because speaking of game-changing plays, the difference in that game, and I know it was very back and forth and it was very offensive, but this one came down to special teams. And you brought up the special teams discrepancy multiple times. That muff punt from Xavier Smith was the game-changing play of the night.
It was, and the Rams special teams have been a problem for them for a very long time. This entire year in the mid-20s in special teams in terms of DVOA, and we saw it pop up again yesterday. By the way, Smith almost did it a first time. Remember, he got lucky. There was a punt that bounced off of him, but he dove on it immediately because the Seahawks defender was trying to just at a bad angle to go and get it, and then this one he actually pays for. Look, there was a lot of different issues here, but at the end of the day, the Rams have nobody to blame but themselves for their failures, and in that specific instance where we don't talk enough about special teams, returns, punt coverage units, all those sort of things, the Seahawks have been the best team in the National Football League, I think, all season long. I think statistically they're behind the Jets in terms of DVOA, but this is a group that has been nails, and especially since they got Rashid Shaheed, they've been brilliant. And like you said, 31-27, it's a very big difference as to why you end up losing that game the way that you do.
I mean, it's interesting how high scoring and like back and forth these offenses were going, just explosiveness so early on for three quarters, and then we had no points in the fourth. I would have liked to see if Nacua could get out of bounds and see Stafford get one more play, or the woulda, shoulda, coulda, what had been with special teams, all of that. But a fun game nonetheless. That was certainly the more exciting of the two. Again, 31-27, the final in that one. Seattle does win and cover the number. We soared over the total in that one for Patriots Broncos 10-7. Again, your final. Denver does cover that 3.5. I do think that the drop off from Bo Nix to Jared Stidham was a little more significant than people like to lead on. The under never in doubt in that weird weather game with a zillion missed kicks as well. We didn't even talk about the performance of Sam Darnold yet and what an unbelievable day he had, especially considering his struggles with the Rams in the regular season. So when we come back after the break, we will dive a little bit deeper into his performance, what we think of this matchup with New England in Super Bowl 60, which is upon us. Our first preview, JVT, for what will be 2 full weeks of previewing this game. Keep it locked right here. We're just getting started on Money Moves. We will dive into all of that and more next when we return.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Super Bowl 60 is set. Seahawks and Patriots rematch of Super Bowl 49. Settle in because we have 2 full weeks to talk about every single angle of this game as the two will meet February 8th in Santa Clara. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the sports betting network. The hypothetical look-ahead number on this game, which we discussed last week, JVT, was Seattle minus 3.5. Should this be the matchup, total 45.5. When it reopened very quickly, Seattle minus 4.5. Total up to 46.5. I saw some peaking at 5 before we got that buyback, and we are pretty 4.5 across the board right now.
I think that's the right move. We'll see where it ultimately gets to by the time we get to kickoff. I mean, again, a reminder for all of our audience, I don't know the percentage. I'd fancy a guess it's about 90%, somewhere around there, is going to come in by the time we get to Super Bowl weekend. So we have a long time until this thing really gets shaped by what the market wants to do with it. But I think the initial move in making this 4.5 is correct. Stormy, you know how I feel about the Seahawks team. They are a very, very good group, balanced in all 3 facets, and I think that they are in the midst of what's going to be a pretty dominant run when we look back at it. So I think that they deserve to be about 4.5-point favorites. And you can, I guess, draw a line through the game yesterday, but I still think you have some really strong questions about the New England Patriots offense. I saw a lot of people like, well, they just knocked off 3 of the 5 best defenses in the NFL. I don't know if they knocked them off. Their offense hasn't been particularly great. Their defense has played extremely well over these games that they have played, and now they get a massive test with the Seattle Seahawks unit. So we will see, because outside of Matthew Stafford, there is no team, no offense that has really cracked the hide of this Seahawks defensive unit. They've been brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point about the Patriots in general on this road to the playoffs. Like, they have yet to face a team that has both a great offense and a great defense. They've faced, as you said, a few really tough defenses in the playoffs and struggled against them, as you said. Now face an offense that's also really capable when they want to be. Significantly more upside for Seattle offensively than the Texans or the Broncos with the backup quarterback. Like, does this Patriots secondary stand a chance against JSN? I don't know. New England's defense has allowed just 26 total points in the playoffs, but I don't think that that's going to be the situation here. And you still have to go up against another really, really stout defense, as you mentioned. I want to take a moment here, though, if we can, real quickly, and give Sam Darnold some flowers here, because you've got to feel good for him just as a sports and a football fan, having the game of his life in that moment, considering all of the doubt that's been thrown his way and the struggles that he had in this series with Los Angeles in the regular season. He had 2 touchdowns, 6 picks the previous 2 games. Last night, he goes out there, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, nearly 250 yards. Here's Mike McDonald, his head coach, followed by Jackson Smith and Jigba on what Sam Darnold has meant.
Can't talk about the game without talking about our quarterback. I mean, he just shut a lot of people up tonight, so I'm really happy for him. 300-something yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Every time they went and scored again, he came back, made some big-time throws on 3rd down, 2-minute drive, 4-minute drive. The guy barely practiced all week, you know. Just really happy for him. He deserves it. Just been a rock for us the whole year, so just really happy for him.
Just a true leader, true competitor, leader. You know, he led us today. Can't say enough about Sam, man. It's been a great first year. We got one more to go, but you know, for him to overcome what he had to overcome, you know, I'm rolling with Sam all day. So, you know, we believe in him. The building believe in him. The city believe in him, and you know, it's awesome to run out on the field with him.
Hopefully y'all could hear some of that JSN on the back end. It was a little bit low for me in my ears, but regardless, the premise of all of that being the way that he stepped up and essentially shut people up the way that he has. And now, JVT, you look ahead to the Super Bowl, and Sam Darnold is your Super Bowl MVP favorite.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he was always going to be, even if they had like limped through a 13-3 type of game and he had thrown 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. He's a starting quarterback for the team that is favored in the Super Bowl. And we know how these voters like to vote. So I think it makes some sense that regardless of what the position, or excuse me, what the way they won that game was going to be, he was going to be the favorite. JSN is about 5-1 or somewhere in that range to win the award as well. And
plus 550.
Yeah, I think you're maybe starting, you're sniffing around that market. You're probably starting there. I mean, this dude seems to be almost indefensible. And you see some of the metrics and where you put him. And Kubiak did a great job with this offense, just lining him up in different facets. The touchdown that he caught where they put him in the backfield behind Cooper Kupp and he leaks out and gets completely lost in the secondary. It was brilliant, I thought, with the way that the Seahawks were drumming this thing up. And Darnold, look, he deserves a ton of credit. All of you after last year thought that he was cooked. All of you thought that he really didn't have that much left. And Stormy, go back to the offseason where I think you and I both asked the question, which was, hey, look, like, what if this is good Sam Darnold? What if he actually still is the guy who is going to be out there for, 15 of the 17 weeks or whatever it was last season for the Minnesota Vikings? What if they get that? And they've gotten that for the most part. Now, we reiterated this in the week leading up to this. We talked about it a lot when he suffered the oblique injury. Since that first game against Los Angeles Rams, he had definitely fallen off, but this was as good a performance as you're going to get from him. And if he can carry that over in 2 weeks, this is going to be a team that is very dangerous.
Yeah, our under on attempts were cooked pretty quickly.
Oh, I knew that, yeah.
With what he was doing yesterday. So it's interesting because we brought up the Super Bowl MVP market. With the Seahawks, I feel like there's potential for more options than there are with the Patriots. I don't know. A lot of times when we have this conversation, it's like, if you think that the Patriots are going to win, do you just bet Drake May at plus 235? And I could see that being more reasonable than on the Seattle Seahawks side, where you bring up a guy like JSN, who has been so masterful in the receiving game, although it is tough when with quarterback receiver, it goes so hand in hand. Like, you would need Sam Darnold to also throw some picks and have JSN have a couple receiving touchdowns and a monster day with yards, right? I thought Kenneth Walker, like that's not somewhere I would look, but maybe a defensive player just because of how good we know the New England Patriots are against the run. And Kenneth Walker is kind of your only option in the run game. So if he gets stuffed, it's not like somebody else can expand. Like, for me, I think that Seattle has more options. If you looked at JSN or if you looked at maybe like a Rashid Shaheed at a 28-1, if he did something great on special teams and was involved in the offense creatively versus the Patriots, where I kind of think it's going to be the Drake May show.
I see. It's funny. I would disagree. I think that there is two.
Really?
Yeah, I think there's two guys for Seattle if they're going to win this game. It's Sam Darnold or it's JSN. I mean, the pure volume that Jackson Smith-Njigba is getting on a game-to-game basis is absolutely ridiculous. And I think they're just going to continue to do that. I mean, you mentioned he has to have a couple of touchdowns. I don't think so. Stormy, if he has 12 targets, 10 receptions, over 150 yards, and a touchdown, depending on what else the other offensive players do, he's going to be out there for the most valuable player for the Super Bowl. I think it's Darnold, and I think it's Jackson Smith-Njigba, and I think that's really about it for the most part. That's realistically these voters are going to look at. If it plays out the way that it should for a Seattle team, should they win it, I think it's those two, and that's as far as I'm really looking. I mean, we can have some fun with Rashid Shaheed potentially, like you're talking about, at a longer price. Does he return a punt for a touchdown in a low-scoring game? Yeah, potentially, but I think the star power of Jackson Smith-Njigba combined with the story that Sam Darnold would be and their penchant for voting for offensive players like that in general, I think it's a pretty short field for Seattle.
No. So I don't disagree with that standpoint. I'm just saying on the New England side, I don't know who else I would go to other than May.
Oh, sure, yeah. I guess what I'm saying is I think it's 3. 2 Seahawks and 1 Patriot. And it's like, you're right. And you're going to hear this 1,000 times over. It's not an original thought. If you like the Patriots, you should bet Drake May to win Super Bowl MVP. Let's get that out of the way now. Yes, you should do that. But I would agree with that sentiment that I think that's the case. And I guess, yes, technically you're right. There's more Seahawks that could win it than Patriots. But I think I'm cutting this field pretty short. And I think JSN's the farthest I'd go right now.
Yeah. And there is a price difference as we're talking about. If you like the Patriots to bet Drake May, the Patriots on the money line around plus 190, Drake May to win Super Bowl MVP plus 235. If that's enough of a price difference for you in what's a more up in the air market, then go for it. Anything else about this game, at least at first blush, that caught your attention and you have interest in?
I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One of the things that I think would be pretty interesting is the Patriots backfield when we get to player props. How are you going to divvy up those snaps again? Yeah. Because Travion Henderson did not see the field really at all against the Denver Broncos, and it was Ramondre Stevenson, and that was about it. So how that looks in terms of that dynamic is going to be incredible. But we'll have plenty of time to cover that, and you've got plenty of time to sign up for our special here, so make sure you get it. As the Super Bowl approaches, our big game special offer is out there for you. Daily best bets, exclusive betting splits, full access to tools, data, and more. Use a promo code MONEY. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe. Sign up from $240 down to $180. So check it out now. It's our annual sub. It's a big game special offer. Promo code is MONEY, MONEY, to get in on the action. To VSiN.com/subscribe.
Yeah, and you mentioned the props when they become available every day on the show. We'll be diving into different markets. In addition to the serious ones and the standard ones, we'll get into some of the fun ones as well. It's going to be a great couple weeks as we preview the big game 60. So make sure you get in that deal, as JVT mentioned. We got to step aside here on Money Moves, but when we return, will the dogs continue to bark in the association? Wow. 4-2 underdogs cashing outright yesterday. Got a 7-game slate today, 1 game in action. We'll update you on that and more when we return.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
I know we're talking so much about what a fun weekend it was with the NFL and the Super Bowl now officially being set, but with football winding down, college football in the rear view now, just 1 game left in the National Football League, our attention is going to be shifted to more NBA, NHL, college basketball, which is a really fun time of year as you get into it. And in the NBA this past weekend, it was a pretty fun Sunday as well. I know we were all talking football, but underdogs, the Raptors as an 11.5 point dog beat the Thunder on the road in OKC. The Pelicans, same number, do the same thing to the Spurs. I looked deeper on this, JVT. There have now been 35 wins by double-digit dogs in the NBA this season, which is already more than all of last year. What is going on in the association right now?
I couldn't really pin it on one single thing. I do think that we are getting to a point where the league as a whole, the bottom is a little bit closer to the top, and there's just a lot of teams in the middle. So when you have some of these matchups like Toronto taking on the Thunder or the Pelicans taking on the Spurs, there's talent there enough that on any given night you're going to be able to score an upset or two. So I think that's probably a part of it. The league is getting better. It is deeper. There is a lot of talent, and that I think makes it a little bit more difficult on a day-to-day basis. I mean, look, it's also, we're talking about the middle of the country. There's a lot going on out there as well, so maybe it has something to do with it. Who knows what these guys are dealing with on a night-to-night basis. So out there in Texas or in Oklahoma, as you're dealing with these things, does that distract you from what you need to do? That might be also part of the angle. I mean, we mentioned it yesterday. The game ultimately got postponed, but if you think about the Mavericks, who were sitting on the tarmac for 2 hours waiting to fly to Milwaukee and play them that day, and maybe they were going to try to make that happen. So you have a lot going on in that part of the country that maybe did contribute at least to this most recent stretch of dogs.
Yeah, that's a good, to follow up, a good note. Both Mavericks, Bucks, and Nuggets, Grizzlies ended up getting postponed yesterday to be played at another date. But with that Toronto OKC game in particular, the Thunder lose consecutive home games now for the first time since 2023. Any big takeaways for you from that performance?
I mean, we don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I mean, this team, Stormy, they can't shoot. We will continue to, I think, address this with the Oklahoma City Thunder since December 12th. And this is since this little swoon has started. They were a one-loss team up until December 12th. They've shot 33% from beyond the arc, 33.2% on non-corner threes or above the break threes, and 32.5% on corner threes. That corner three-point per shooting percentage is abysmal. To shoot 32%, that's the best three-point shot you want. You want those shots from the corners. And to shoot sub 33% is absolute insanity. And then last night, what do? 11 of 43 from beyond the arc. And they're not going to change their ways. They're going to still put up these shots from beyond the arc. But I would suspect that they're maybe going to start to look for some shooting help at the deadline, because this has been an awful performance from this team. It's something that goes back to last year that they really did struggle with, and they are having issues with it again. And they're also injured. We should be fair about that. Jalen Williams, Isaiah Hartenstein, A.J. Mitchell. They lost Cason Wallace last night to a groin injury as well that might keep him out for a long time. So there are injury concerns, but this is a team that at relative full strength was still a pretty average shooting team in the postseason last year, and that's what held them back. And we should also note to those injuries, it sounds like if you just listen to reports for people that are around the team, that Jalen Williams, that was a very serious wrist injury that he played through in the NBA Finals, and that this is going to plague him for a while in terms of recovery. And you're not exactly going to be fully recovered if you're constantly putting it through the motions when you're talking about playing basketball games. So I think this team is flawed. It's more flawed than it was a season ago, and we saw that in the finals when they were pushed, and the degree to which we expected maybe they were going to get a finals title did not come to fruition. But I think that you're not worried about Oklahoma City, but I feel confident in my assessment of, look, the Nuggets, I think, are going to be a problem for a lot of people when they are fully healthy. They already are now, and this Oklahoma City team has to be looking over their shoulder, wondering what that series could look like. Stormy, it was Aaron Gordon on one leg, Michael Porter Jr. with one shoulder, and it pushed them to 7 games last year with nowhere near the depth they have this year.
Yeah. Meanwhile, for the Raptors, that was their largest upset of the season, JVT. 4th straight win overall, though, all on the road. And Emmanuel quickly certainly elevated his game. Should we be talking a little bit more about Toronto right now, who sits 3rd in the East with 29 wins?
I mean, we should. I brought this up on Pod of the Futures a couple weeks back. I think we brought it up on this show as well. But they are just a half game out in the Atlantic Division. And I don't think the Atlantic Division is anything that is daunting that you're looking at and going, oh, there's no way they can win this. And by the way, yes, divisions still exist in the East and in the NBA. They don't really matter that much because they just seed by where you finish. But either way, you can still bet on whether or not a team wins a division. And this Toronto team, just about a week and a half ago, Stormy was 50-1 to win the Atlantic Division. They're now down to about 11 or 12-1 to win this thing. This is a team that I think is going to be a problem. And they are a team that is allegedly kind of sniffing around at the trade deadline, seeing if they can add on the edges to maybe get a little bit better and make a push into this postseason. And I would say, why not? the Eastern Conference as a whole looks very winnable for the most part. I think the Pistons are the favorite and should be the favorite to win the East given the way that they're playing, but I think you still have some questions about how they're going to close out some of these games. I think they lack for some shot creation outside of Cade, and when you get to some of these best-of-7 series, when he is getting doubles thrown at him, who do you trust to be your second valve offensively? I don't think it's going to be Jaden Ivey if he's healthy, so there is a vacuum of power here. And if you're Toronto, why not see if you can fill that yourself and go at the trade deadline to go get him? So double digits still to win the Atlantic, I would say why not? And I think this team is a threat in the big picture in what seems to be a very flawed conference.
I love it. Okay, anything else you want to hit on from the weekend before we look to today's slate and obviously my priority in the Hornets winnow-meter?
I was going to say, we can hit the winnow-meter. I don't know if it's filled or not, but we have to because, again, the Charlotte Hornets continue to get this thing done, and we are climbing. We are now up to 18 victories for the Charlotte Hornets.
Let's go.
Come on, man. They're on a very good pace. With Brandon Miller on the floor, they've been incredible. They're in love with each other, which is absolutely great. Moussa Diabate and LaMelo Ball dancing together in slow motion. It's been brilliant, dude. So this Hornets team, red hot, baby. Let's keep it going.
That video is one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen in my life. That said, how do you feel about them sitting a favorite today at home against the 76ers, laying 1.5 right now? The total in Charlotte, 228.5.
I mean, this is a big test. Now, look, Paul George and Joel Embiid are not playing.
I hate when they're in the favorites role, JVT. Yep. I hate it so much.
They've got to deliver at some point, and in a couple of spots they have. But tonight, no Joel Embiid, no Paul George. That is why they are favored. If either of those two were playing or if they were both playing, they would be underdogs here. And Joel Embiid, by the way, I will say this because we can tie this into this game too. Very quietly, Joel Embiid coming off of a game in which he looked pretty darn good against the New York Knicks in a very strong third quarter. Ended up with 38 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, and a couple of blocks as well in 36 minutes. Again, he's not playing here today, but I think the Hornets, this goes back to that Indiana game. I'll invoke the Lakers game. Remember, they played the Lakers on the road about a week ago or so. This is the litmus test. The two of the three better players, and I would argue Tyrese Maxey is their best player right now, is not playing today. And if that's the case, then this should be an opportunity for you if you're going to be a serious big boy team that you got to catch them and get it done here. So we will see if they can. But this is a really interesting matchup for Philly playing relatively early on the road against a Hornets team that seems to be very, very hot right now.
Excuse me. Gosh, you are lucky that you're away from me right now. Otherwise, I'd be coughing on you instead of this microphone.
I'm glad. I mean,
when you go through the rest of what?
I was just going to say I might leave town next week just so I can stay away from you.
See, that's smooth of you. We are very disconnected right now. I think you miss me. I know I miss you. I'm having separation anxiety. And the fact that you are leaving because you're going to be traveling during Super Bowl week for all of the content out there in Santa Clara, that we're going to be at an arm's length once again, it's going to be tough on me.
Two things. First off, I think from here to San Francisco is a little bit more than an arm's length. I will just say that. And second, the internet would believe that I'm jealous of you and that you don't like me because I'm so mean. So we have to keep that going. You can't just say that you miss me in front of all these people.
Oh, sorry. I forgot. Got to keep up the bit. Keep up the bit. We're not friends at all. We'll hit on more NBA, and we've got college basketball also coming up. But I guess just quickly, was there another game that you wanted to get in the last 90 seconds?
No, I think we're looking at today, Orlando and Cleveland's going to be really interesting as well. Cleveland's up to a 6-point favorite. Total's at 226.5. We brought up the Magic the other day when we were discussing some of the fallout from some of these games. In fact, the last Hornets win. That's why we brought them up. We filled up the win-o-meter, but we really went in and focused on a Magic team that seems to be sliding at this point. The vibes aren't there. But look, Orlando is healthy. The only guy on the injury report right now of note is Franz Wagner, so they should be okay, although Wagner, you could argue, is kind of the straw that stirs the drink for them offensively. And for Cleveland, still no Darius Garland, DeAndre Hunter, Sam Merrill are both questionable to play. My whole point here being is maybe this is a buy low spot for Orlando. There's images of Jamal Mosley going to break a huddle and nobody doing it, and we played Paolo Banchero kind of calling out the team and the coaching staff the other day. Vibes and power ratings seem to be at an all-time low for Orlando, but this might be a pretty good spot to buy low potentially. So I'll be curious to see how high the market gets. By the way, people, if you're listening to me right now, Stormy and I can't reach out to each other because we're so far away, but reaching people is easy. Reaching the right people is everything. So make sure you check out Mission Media. Helps your brand do exactly that with cross-platform strategies that reach sports fans wherever they're watching or listening, podcasts, connected TV, streaming, digital. And because Mission Media is the exclusive exclusive advertising partner for us at VSiN, you get access to one of the most loyal, engaged, bet-ready audiences in the country. People who respond, engage, and convert. Get started at vsin.com/advertise or email advertising@vsin.com. Speaking of converting, it's what BYU and those people out there want Stormy to do. Will she do it? We'll find out next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
All right, we're rolling along on this Monday edition of Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM, Channel 158. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel. Why'd you have that question mark face when I said Monday? It's the right day of the week.
No, I was just wondering if you were going to pay off the teas. I told our audience that we would find out if you were going to convert to Mormonism when we got back. So the answer to that question is?
The answer to that question is I'm betting Arizona today, so they probably wouldn't want me anymore.
It's a good
but we can get to that in a moment. That is worth noting, though, because we're going to talk a lot about college hoops today, and I think rightfully so, especially coming off of what was such a fun weekend. But we got two great games today with Arizona and BYU, Louisville and Duke. Over the weekend, of course, I was, and still am here in Lubbock, Texas. My favorite place in the world, as Texas Tech gets that revenge win over Houston on Saturday. UConn survives a scare in overtime at home against Villanova. Down goes number 4 Purdue again, this time at home as Illinois gets a 6-point road win. Boilermakers drop back-to-back games now straight up. They're on a tough ATS slide. Auburn upsets Florida. Like, this was a really, really fun, exciting college basketball weekend. And I know we talked about all of the underdogs that were getting the wins in the NBA last segment because of just the way that the talent is dispersed in the association, but maybe more and more in college basketball with NIL, it's getting that way too, where we're seeing some of these upsets.
I mean, it's getting that way, but it's also, and I think this is kind of leading the way with some of the results we're talking about here, although one of these players did not play over the weekend due to his injury. It sounds like Peterson will be back here, though, for Kansas in short order. But these guys at the top of the draft, Stormy, including A.J. DeMonsa coming off of the 43 points, 6 rebound, 3 assist performance in the Holy War here. Dude, the talent level, these guys, Boozer, DeBonsa, Peterson, there's so many good players at the top of this NBA draft. It is very exciting for people like me who really like the association, but it's good for college basketball because these are really high-level players, and being able to – because the cool part is it's not like a Markelle Fultz thing, right, where Markelle Fultz didn't play on a very good team, or same thing with Ben Simmons when he was on LSU. No, these are going to be teams that are going to be front and center for the NCAA tournament when it comes around, and that should be awesome theater for all of us who enjoy it, and I think that's part of it too, and you hit it on the head. There is a dispersal of talent. You're able to pay for guys to come in and play. And college basketball has just always had that. Basketball can be a pretty volatile sport. Look at the game that we were tracking yesterday, FAU in South Florida, where we talked about that. South Florida down early. It's a volatile game. You're going to have a lot of possessions. You're going to shoot a ton of threes, probably find a chance to get back into this thing, and sure enough, they did in a really big way. So I think it just lends itself to that way because it's the sport, but everything you've hit on already is leading to what I mean, I don't have a deep knowledge of regular season basketball in terms of narrative and excitement, but this seems to be one of the more exciting regular seasons we've had in a while.
And let's get to that big game of the day with Arizona and BYU going head-to-head. Arizona was as high as a 3.5-point favorite, and BYU's been getting played as that home dog with the tough home court advantage that they have out there in Provo. Arizona currently sitting as a 1.5-point favorite, total 165.5. Ken Pom does have this Arizona by 3 in 82-79 final, which would stay under. The idea of getting Arizona at such a short price in this one, what was your early evaluation when you saw the number start coming down?
I think it makes some sense that you're going to start to come down a little bit here. You know me, I like this BYU team a ton. I think that in the grand scheme of things, that they are a group that is deserving of enough respect here with a strong home court that they would maybe even be favored by like a point and a half over Arizona. But these are two, it's like watching my two children fight. It's entertaining and it's absolutely fantastic, and I won't stop it, but it is hard to really pick a side because both teams I think very highly of here. BYU across the board has been a rock solid team. Even defensively, Stormy, they've been pretty good. In conference play, they've slipped a little bit here. They're 5th, middle of the pack in defensive efficiency. They don't force a ton of turnovers, so that has been pretty rough here, and their three-point shooting has fallen off a little bit against Big 12 opponents. So maybe ultimately that makes a difference difference, which is why we probably should be where we're at. For Arizona, we haven't really seen that much. I mean, Arizona's free throw defense has been pretty poor. Opponents are shooting 81% of the free throw line against them, against Big 12 opponents. Obviously, you can't do anything about that, but this should be a really good game. Both teams kind of scuffling from beyond the arc. This is going to come down to whether or not BYU can stop Arizona inside and do it without fouling. Arizona leads the Big 12 in free throw attempt rate. This is going to be a big difference, and they lead the Big 12 in two-point percentage. If you can turn that off, then I think you're going to be in a position, if you can win the math battle from beyond the arc, because BYU will take some more threes than Arizona will, then I think you're going to be in a spot to potentially get this done if you're the Cougars.
Yeah, 17-2 for BYU this season, 5-1 in the Big 12. Their lone loss at Texas Tech in conference. Let that game slip away in the last 5 minutes, too, because they were up double digits. And Provo, as you mentioned, a really tough place to play. I think this is going to be a great game. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be back and forth. But I look at this Arizona team, who is not only top in the AP, but the top team now in Ken Palm's overall net rating. They have leapfrogged Michigan in that. They're coming off a 35-point win over West Virginia. I feel like they're just operating at a different level right now. Yep. They defend so well. They rebound so well. They don't turn it over. Mistakes are not really their bag. And you mentioned the three-point shooting. That is something that really stands out about their offense. They don't shoot a lot of threes. But I actually think that kind of bodes well for them in a tough road environment, that winning or losing isn't going to come down to how hot they are from three. It's if they can get inside. They get 45% of their shots at the rim. Arizona is also the second best total rebounding team in the country, so the opportunity for second chance points. BYU certainly capable of winning this game. I think the road for that is AJ Debonta being able to play like he's a top 2 pick. I'm not saying he needs to have a repeat performance like he did at Utah, but he needs to play like himself. I just feel like in so many categories, Arizona just has an edge.
Sure. And let's point out a couple of things here. First off, the market kind of flying in the face of some of the projections, because all of the major projections, again, Bartorovic, Haslametrics, Ken Palm, have this as about a 3.5-point spread. Bartorovic's actually a little bit higher at like 4.2, but the market not in line with what some of the major projections might think here. The other part, I do wonder, again, college basketball being a little bit more situational than others, what do you get for BYU after a short turnaround in a big rivalry spot against Utah? That is something that I think is worth noting here as well. Debonta had a great and powerful performance against Utah, but that is still a game that emotionally you put a lot into, despite the fact that you won by 13. Now you got to turn around with a day off in between to play host to the number 1 team in the country. That situationally, I would think maybe is a tougher spot for a team like BYU as opposed to Arizona, who's coming off of a dominant win themselves, but that being against West Virginia.
I just pulled up Arizona's schedule. They have a bear of a schedule over the next month and a half. Yep. In addition to this BYU game, they get them again at home as well. They're at Houston, a home and home with Kansas, host Iowa State, host Texas Tech. And the Big 12 is so good right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. They are 5-1 right now, second shot on the board to win it all behind Michigan. And like I said a moment ago, they have actually leapfrogged Michigan on the Ken Palm overall net rating right now. We beat this game to hell. Let's go to Louisville Duke here at least briefly. Duke opened a 6.5-point favorite. I'm currently seeing 8.5. I think in part at least why it opened so short. Michael Brown got back on the court for the Cardinals after about a month away with injury. He looked great in his return game against Virginia Tech, put up 20 points, 6 assists. This has since, as I mentioned, been bet out. Ken Palm has this about an 8-point Duke win, so right about on the number. Total here bet up from 155.5 to 157.5, and we go from the star power of AJ Debonta to now the star power of Cameron Boozer.
Yeah, I mean, these are two teams that I really do like a lot, but I think one of the things that is going to make a difference here for both of them is Louisville being a team that is primarily relying on its jump shots. Are they going to be able to get some of the easy buckets? And if those don't start to fall in a non-familiar arena there, then that's going to be a problem. They're number 1 right now in the country in three-point attempt rate. They are shooting very well, 35.3%, but that has led to a very low free throw rate, obviously, because you're not forcing the issue within 4 feet of the the basket. So you do wonder if that's going to be something that does get them. I am going to be curious to see how they shoot here against Duke and how they handle it. And Duke on the other side, too. I mean, they've had some tests here and there, but they've definitely turned some things around. They go out to Cal. They get pushed in the first half, but pull away in the second. And then since then, blow out Stanford, blow out Wake Forest. They seem to be a team that is firing on all cylinders, especially on defense. I've been really impressed with them since they've gotten to ACC play. I think the number's probably like right around where it should be, maybe a skosh too high, just in the fact that if you believe that Louisville's going to be able to shoot the ball extremely well here today, that they're going to be good enough to stay inside of this number. But I didn't feel like I had a really big edge here for these two teams. And quite frankly, Stormy, in all of this when it comes to college basketball, haven't seen a ton of Louisville myself outside of a good spots.
Yeah, the first meeting on January 6th, Duke won at Louisville 84-73. Louisville had a 12-point lead in the first half. They were shooting lights out, went cold in the second, couldn't stop Cam Boozer. He went 10-12 from the floor, 27 points, 8 boards. Isaiah Evans had 23. Caleb Foster had 20. He was a big key in their win. Just 17 combined points in the Blue Devils' 3 wins since. So which version of him do we get? Also, Michael Brown did not play in that game. I kind of lean taking the points as it's gotten bet out to the 8.5, but no play for me either.
Yep. Hey, if you love moments that make sports betting unforgettable, don't miss the top 10 most memorable sports betting moments 2025, hosted by Tim Murray tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. Biggest swings, wildest finishes, most unforgettable tickets. Relive the moments bettors won't stop talking about. Watch it tomorrow, 1 Eastern only on VSiN, and check out the article where all of them, top 20, are ranked up at VSiN.com from our own Adam Burke.